The storm Dan Cooper jumped into on November 24th, 1971, featured 200-mile-per-hour winds, freezing rain, and zero visibility. He wore only a business suit and loafers, carried a parachute he'd never used, and leaped into the worst flying weather in Pacific Northwest history. Experts calculated his survival chances at near zero, but no body was ever found. No confirmed evidence of his death was discovered. The FBI believes he died in the jump, but true crime investigators aren't so sure. What if D.B. Cooper didn't just commit the perfect crime? What if he achieved the perfect escape? If you're fascinated by mysteries where the impossible becomes legendary, make sure to subscribe because this story challenges everything we think we know about perfect crimes and ultimate disappearances. Dan Cooper, not DB as newspapers later misreported, appeared unremarkable as he approached the Northwest Orient ticket counter at Portland International Airport. November 24th, 1971. Thanksgiving afternoon. A middle-aged businessman in a dark suit and white shirt, black tie and white-collared shirt, carrying a briefcase and paper bag. Flight attendant Florence Schaffner noticed him during boarding. Well-dressed, polite, the kind of passenger who said please and thank you. Cooper ordered bourbon and soda, lit a cigarette, and seemed to enjoy the short flight to Seattle. 20 minutes after takeoff, Cooper's ordinary afternoon became extraordinary. He handed Schaffner a folded note. She assumed it was a phone number, another businessman trying to make a connection. The note sat in her pocket unread while she continued serving passengers. Cooper leaned toward her seat. "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Schaffner's hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. Neat handwriting. Simple message. "I have a bomb in my briefcase. I will use it if necessary. I want you to sit next to me. You are being hijacked." The briefcase sat open beside Cooper's seat. Schaffner glimpsed wires, a battery, what appeared to be dynamite. Real or fake, she couldn't tell. But Cooper's calm demeanor suggested he was serious about using it. "Don't panic," Cooper said quietly. "I'm not going to hurt anyone. I just need you to take a message to your captain." Cooper's demands were specific but reasonable. $200,000 in $20 bills. For parachutes. Fuel trucks standing by in Seattle. No heroics. No dilas. Everyone stays calm. Everyone stays safe. Captain William Scott received the message with professional composure. This was 1971, before metal detectors and security screenings, when hijackings happened frequently but rarely ended in violence. Most hijackers wanted transportation to Cuba. Cooper wanted money and parachutes. The Boeing 727 circled Seattle while Northwest Orient gathered Cooper's ransom. He chatted with Schaffner about his background, claimed to work in the aerospace industry, knew technical details about the 727's capabilities. He seemed knowledgeable about parachuting, asking specific questions about altitude and airspeed. Cooper remained polite throughout the ordeal. He paid for his drinks, suggested the pilots circle Seattle so passengers could see the city lights. When children became restless, he asked Schaffner to comfort them. "I'm not doing this to hurt people," Cooper told her. "I'm just solving a problem." At 5:45 p.m., Flight 305 landed at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. Cooper had been in control for over 2 hours without raising his voice or threatening violence. FBI agents watched from the terminal, but Cooper insisted on no law enforcement contact until his demands were met. Northwest Orient delivered exactly what Cooper requested. $200,000 in marked $20 bills, each serial number recorded by FBI agents. For parachutes, 2 primary chutes and 2 reserve chutes, as Cooper had specified. Cooper inspected the money and parachutes with professional attention. He rejected 1 parachute, choosing instead a military-style Navy NB-6 that experienced jumpers preferred. His selections suggested real knowledge of skydiving equipment. After releasing the 36 passengers, Cooper kept several crew members aboard. His new demands were equally specific. Fly toward Mexico City at low altitude and reduce speed. Wheels down, flaps lowered, no faster than 200 miles per hour. The 727's configuration puzzled experienced pilots. Cooper's specifications would make the plane difficult to control, inefficient for long-distance flight, but ideal for parachuting. He knew exactly what he needed for a safe jump. Captain Scott followed Cooper's instructions as the Boeing 727 lifted off from Seattle at 7:40 p.m. Their destination was Mexico City, but Cooper had no intention of completing that journey. The weather was deteriorating rapidly. A Pacific storm system was moving inland, bringing hurricane-force winds, freezing rain, and cloud cover that eliminated visibility. Meteorologists later described conditions as the worst flying weather in regional history. Cooper seemed unconcerned about the storm. He asked for flight charts, studied the terrain below, and calculated distances to various landmarks. Around 8 p.m., somewhere over southwestern Washington, Cooper made his final preparations. He tied the money bag to his waist, secured the parachute harness, and instructed the crew to maintain their heading and speed. At 8 p.m., Cooper lowered the aft stairs of the Boeing 727, a unique feature that allowed passengers to exit from the rear of the aircraft during flight. If you're finding this story as incredible as the FBI agents who investigated it, don't forget to subscribe for more cases where reality exceeds fiction. Wind and rain howled through the open stairway. The temperature was near freezing. Cooper wore only his business suit, no protection against the elements he was about to enter. Flight attendant Tina Mucklow, who had remained aboard to assist Cooper, watched him stand at the edge of the stairs. The storm raged below, invisible terrain waiting somewhere in the darkness. Cooper turned back briefly. "Thank you for your cooperation," he said. "Happy Thanksgiving." At approximately 8 p.m., Dan Cooper stepped into the storm and vanished into Pacific Northwest legend. The Boeing 727 suddenly lifted, relieved of Cooper's weight as he cleared the aircraft. Captain Scott felt the plane's reaction to Cooper's jump, confirming he had indeed gone through with his desperate plan. But jumping was only the beginning of Cooper's challenge. Weather conditions below were catastrophic. The National Weather Service reported wind speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour, horizontal rain that could strip flesh, and cloud cover so dense that ground contact was impossible. Cooper was jumping blind into a maelstrom that had grounded all other aircraft in the region. The terrain added another layer of danger. Dense forests covered the jump zone, old-growth timber that could impale a descending parachutist. Rivers and ravines created additional hazards for anyone attempting a night landing in unfamiliar territory. Cooper's clothing was completely inadequate for survival. His business suit offered no protection against freezing temperatures. His dress shoes would be useless for hiking through forest terrain. He carried no survival equipment, no food, no emergency supplies. The parachute Cooper had chosen was designed for experienced military jumpers, not civilians attempting their first night jump in severe weather. The NB-6 required precise control and timing that Cooper might not possess despite his apparent knowledge of equipment. FBI agent Ralph Himmelsbach, who would spend the next 20 years hunting Cooper, calculated the hijacker's survival odds at near zero. The combination of weather, terrain, equipment, and Cooper's apparent inexperience created what Himmelsbach called a perfect recipe for death. The FBI launched the largest investigation in Bureau history. Hundreds of agents searched the projected landing zone, interviewed potential witnesses, and followed thousands of tips from across the country. They found nothing. No parachute, no body, no confirmed wreckage or evidence of Cooper's fate. The $200,000 in marked bills never entered circulation, suggesting Cooper either died with the money or had chosen not to spend it. But the lack of evidence also meant the lack of proof that Cooper was dead. Over 5 decades, amateur investigators have proposed alternative theories about Cooper's survival. They argue that his knowledge of parachuting and aircraft systems suggests military or professional experience. His calm demeanor and careful planning indicate someone who had prepared extensively for the jump. Some investigators believe Cooper landed safely and lived anonymously for decades. They point to his specific equipment choices, his understanding of weather patterns, and his apparent familiarity with the terrain as evidence of sophisticated planning. Others argue that Cooper's politeness and concern for passenger safety suggests someone with a code of ethics. A person who might have continued living quietly rather than spending marked money that could expose him. The FBI officially suspended active investigation in 2016, 45 years after Cooper's jump. The Bureau concluded that Cooper most likely died during or shortly after the jump, citing the severe weather conditions and his inadequate preparation. But suspension of investigation doesn't equal proof of death. Modern technology has been applied to Cooper's case with mixed results. Advanced weather modeling confirms the severity of conditions Cooper faced. Computer simulations of his probable flight path suggest he landed in extremely remote terrain where a body might never be found. DNA analysis of evidence from the aircraft has produced genetic profiles that could potentially identify Cooper if a suspect were located. But no definitive matches have emerged from the FBI's database searches. The marked bills from Cooper's ransom have become collector's items, traded among true crime enthusiasts who believe Cooper survived. Only a small portion of the money was ever recovered, found partially buried along the Columbia River years after the hijacking. Cooper's crime occurred during the golden age of American hijacking, when security was minimal and escape seemed possible. Today's aviation security would prevent Cooper's plan before he reached the aircraft. Metal detectors, background checks, and surveillance systems make his crime a relic of a simpler time. But Cooper's legend transcends the mechanics of his crime. He represents the romantic notion that an ordinary person can outwit the system, achieve the impossible, and vanish in a mystery without harming innocent people. The FBI received over 800 tips identifying potential Cooper suspects. Several men have claimed to be the famous hijacker, usually on their deathbeds or through family members seeking closure. None have been definitively proven. Kenneth Christensen, a Northwest Orient employee, resembled FBI sketches and had access to airline information. Robert Rackstraw, a Vietnam veteran with paratrooper training, possessed the skills Cooper demonstrated. Skip Porteous, a magazine publisher, claimed his uncle confessed to being Cooper before dying. Each suspect has compelling evidence and disqualifying factors. Cooper's true identity remains as elusive as his ultimate fate. The mystery has inspired books, documentaries, and annual conventions where Cooper enthusiasts share theories and evidence. The FBI encourages continued public interest, hoping someone will eventually provide information that solves the case. Cooper's impact on aviation security was immediate and lasting. His successful hijacking contributed to the development of metal detectors, mandatory baggage screening, and federal sky marshals. The very measures that make his crime impossible today exist partly because of his perfect execution in 1971. Whether Cooper survived his jump or died in the storm, he achieved something unique in criminal history. He committed a federal crime without violence, collected a substantial ransom, and disappeared completely without harming anyone except the airline's insurance company. The storm that should have killed him also provided perfect cover for escape. The same weather conditions that made survival nearly impossible also made tracking and recovery equally difficult. If you're captivated by mysteries where legend and reality intersect, make sure you're subscribed for more cases where the impossible becomes possible. 53 years later, Dan Cooper remains the only hijacker who was never caught, never identified, and never definitively proven dead or alive. His crime was perfect not because it was complex, but because it was simple. His escape was legendary not because it was planned, but because it was impossible. The storm over southwestern Washington claimed Dan Cooper on November 24, 1971. Whether it killed him or concealed his escape, only Cooper knows for certain. And Dan Cooper, wherever he might be, has kept that secret for over half a century.